From AI-generated insights to human-reviewed accuracy, this is Neural Newscast, keeping you informed every day.
From our digital news hub, this is Andrew Lindbeck. It's August 26, 2025. On this day in 1791, inventors John Fitch and James Rumsey each received a U.S. patent for the steamboat, settling a fierce dispute over credit. Political shifts and debates ahead. Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook says she will sue after President Donald Trump orders her removal, challenging executive authority and Fed independence. Here's Cassandra Joyce with more.
Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook plans to sue President Donald Trump after he orders her removal. Cook says the president has no authority to do so, arguing the Federal Reserve Act protects governors' terms and central bank independence. The White House frames the move as accountability, one perspective in a broader debate over executive power and Fed autonomy. Legal scholars note presidents can remove some officials, but Fed governors traditionally serve fixed 14-year terms. Markets watch closely, as challenges to Fed independence are part of ongoing discussions about inflation, growth, and democratic oversight.
A federal judge permits Maine to block Medicaid payments to providers that perform abortions, prompting appeals. Here's Daniel Grove with more.
A federal judge allows Maine to block Medicaid funds from providers that perform abortions. The ruling backs Republican lawmakers who argue taxpayers should not subsidize abortion services. Abortion rights groups warn the move could limit access to broader reproductive care, especially for low-income patients. Both positions reflect one side of an ongoing national debate over public funding and abortion. The judge says he will not thwart the policy, but appeals are likely. President Donald Trump's administration-era funding fights still shape today's legal and political landscape. This is Daniel Grove for Neural Newscast.
International headlines coming up. UN officials demand accountability after a reported Israeli strike on Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis, calling for an independent inquiry and protection of medical facilities under international law. Israel's initial review says a Hamas surveillance device was targeted, but notes gaps requiring further examination. Gaza health workers report casualties and damage that disrupted critical care. Turning to Iran nuclear talks. European diplomats press Iran over stalled nuclear talks, focusing on enrichment and inspection concerns. Here's Daniel Grove with more.
European officials press Iran on stalled nuclear talks, but progress remains elusive. Diplomats from France, Germany, and the United Kingdom meet Iranian ministers to urge compliance with the 2015 nuclear deal. They focus on uranium enrichment levels, inspections, and steps to reduce regional tensions. Iran maintains it has a right to peaceful nuclear energy and seeks relief from sanctions. The Europeans warn that expanded enrichment and limited access for inspectors raise proliferation risks. No timeline emerges for new negotiations or confidence-building measures. The standoff keeps pressure high across the Middle East and global energy markets.
Russia and Ukraine are striking each other's energy sites, aiming to gain leverage away from the front lines. Here's Samuel Green with more.
Russia and Ukraine step up strikes on each other's energy infrastructure to gain leverage beyond the front lines. In recent weeks, drones and missiles hit power plants, fuel depots, and grid nodes, disrupting electricity and repairs. Kiev targets oil refineries and logistics deep inside Russia. Moscow pounds Ukrainian power stations, forcing rolling outages and emergency imports. Both aim to raise political pressure and shape any future talks with Washington in mind. The attacks test winter resilience, drain repair crews, and risk wider blackouts that hit households, industry, and the war effort alike.
A Moscow court jailed a protester 15 years for donating $500 to Ukrainian forces, highlighting harsh treason laws. Here's Monica Kellen with more.
A Moscow court sentences a Russian programmer to 15 years in a maximum security prison. Judges convict him of treason for sending $500 to Ukrainian defense forces. The court says the transfer amounts to aiding an enemy during wartime. The defendant curses President Vladimir Putin in the courtroom as the verdict is read. His lawyers plan to appeal the ruling. The case highlights Russia's sweeping use of treason laws to punish even small acts of support for Ukraine. Rights groups warn the verdict will chill dissent.
Turning to risks for reporters in Gaza. 5 journalists were reportedly killed in a strike on Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis, highlighting dangers for the press. In Australia, an unfolding manhunt. 2 police officers were shot and killed in rural Australia, prompting a large manhunt and warnings to residents. Here's Thomas Golding with more.
2 police officers are shot and killed in rural Australia, and a 3rd officer is wounded. The shooting happens about 200 miles from Melbourne, prompting a large manhunt. Local authorities warn residents to stay indoors and avoid the area while officers search for the gunman. Roads close and emergency alerts go out to nearby towns. Investigators work to secure the scene and collect evidence. Officials promise a full inquiry and urge the public to report any sightings or suspicious activity immediately. This is Thomas Golding for Neural Newscast.
A look at jobs, markets, and money. Food inflation rises to an 18-month high as egg prices surge and grocery bills climb for households. Here's Ethan Wells with more.
Food inflation hits an 18-month high as egg prices jump and other staples get pricier. A new survey finds households paying more for everyday items, from bread and milk to cooking oil. Shoppers feel the squeeze most in weekly grocery bills. Supermarkets face higher costs for feed, fuel, and packaging, which filter into prices. Analysts warn rising food costs can slow consumer spending and strain lower-income families. One researcher calls it a persistent pressure, urging close watch on prices in the months ahead.
New U.S. tariffs on autos and parts threaten the global supply chain, worrying suppliers and manufacturers. Here's Cassandra Joyce with more.
New U.S. tariffs on imported cars and parts put the global auto supply chain at risk. Smaller component makers in Japan, South Korea, and Germany face higher costs and shrinking orders. These firms underpin assembly lines and employ hundreds of thousands of workers. Automakers warn they may cut production or shift sourcing if tariffs persist. Analysts say higher prices could hit U.S. buyers and slow new model launches. One economist calls the parts sector the backbone of manufacturing, urging quick trade talks to limit damage. This is Cassandra Joyce for Neural Newscast.
You are listening to NNC, Neural Newscast. Subscribe and listen wherever you choose, and be sure to listen to our archive for more content like this episode, published daily at nnewscast.com.
Digital breakthroughs and discoveries. AI-powered dead bots that mimic the deceased are growing into a lucrative but controversial market, say researchers. Here's Kara Swift with more.
AI dead bots drive a booming digital afterlife market that could hit $80 billion within a decade. Tech firms invest heavily, seeing avatars that mimic deceased people as profitable services. Researchers warn of manipulation risks, privacy violations, and grief exploitation. Families may face deep fakes that blur consent and identity. Policymakers discuss safeguards, including disclosure rules and data rights. One expert calls for clear consent and strict limits to prevent abuse. This is Kara Swift for Neural Newscast.
A look at research and innovation. Researchers show plants and fungi trade nutrients through underground networks that act like marketplaces, with implications for agriculture. Here's Nathaniel Cohen with more.
Plants and fungi trade nutrients through vast underground networks that act like markets. Mycorrhizal fungi swap mineral nutrients for plant sugars, steering resources toward partners that pay more. Lab and field studies show they reroute phosphorus and nitrogen among multiple routes within hours. This exchange boosts plant growth, stabilizes ecosystems, and shapes forests and farms. Scientists say the system rewards cooperation, offering clues for resilient agriculture and carbon storage. This is Nathaniel Cohen for Neural Newscast.
Let's turn to health news. A teen confided suicidal thoughts to ChatGPT, highlighting risks when chatbots are used as emotional supports. Here's Laura Navarro with more.
More teens are turning to chatbots for emotional support, sometimes in crisis. In the UK, 16-year-old Adam Rain starts with homework help on ChatGPT, then confides suicidal thoughts. He says the bot felt safe and always available. Mental health experts urge caution. Chatbots can listen and suggest resources, but they can't replace trained care or emergency help. Families and schools should ask teens what tools they use and set plans for hard moments. If someone is in danger, call local emergency services or a crisis line immediately.
Nigeria faces a dire maternal health crisis as militants return and U.S. aid declines, endangering mothers and clinics. Here's Laura Navarro with more.
Nigeria faces a deadly maternal health crisis. More women die in childbirth there than anywhere else. In the Northeast, danger grows as Boko Haram resurges and U.S. aid dwindles. Clinics lack staff, supplies, and safe transport. Mothers travel hours for care, then wait in crowded wards. Midwives stretch shifts and improvise. Families sell belongings for medicine. Communities need stable funding, security, and basic essentials, trained workers, blood, and ambulances to save lives. This is Laura Navarro for Neural Newscast.
Updates on climate and conservation. A German court ruled Apple cannot call certain smartwatches carbon neutral, rejecting the firm's offset plan. Here's Samuel Green with more.
A German court rules Apple cannot market the select Apple Watch Series 9 models as carbon neutral. The Frankfurt decision finds Apple's offset plan, planting eucalyptus in Paraguay, too uncertain to support the claim. Judges note 3/4 of the land is only leased through 2029, with no guaranteed continuation. Consumer group Deutsche Umwelthilfe brought the case. Apple may need to change its wording. Deuce Jürgen Resch calls the promise deceptive and the offset ineffective. This is Samuel Green for Neural Newscast.
Now let's share the latest from abroad. A Moscow court handed a 15-year sentence for a small donation to Ukraine, underscoring tough penalties for dissent. Monica Kellen has been following the case. This is Monica Kellen for Neural Newscast. Before we go, a quick thanks for listening. That wraps our news roundup for this hour. From our digital news hub, this is Andrew Lindbeck. Thanks for tuning in to Neural Newscast. For full stories and breaking updates, visit neuralnewscast.com and follow us on your favorite podcast app.
You've been listening to Neural Newscast. Visit us online for past stories, share today's episode, or subscribe for daily updates at neuralnewscast.com. Neural Newscast blends real and AI-generated voices for fast, high-quality production. All content is AI-generated with human oversight, including fact-checking and review. While we aim for accuracy and neutrality, errors may occur. Verify critical details from trusted sources. Learn more at nnewscast.com.